Hello, everyone, and welcome to Let's Talk Real Life with Miss Nada Manning. I'm your co host, Coach Vernon Garrison, and we have a very special guest back with us again today, Dr. Jan Noel Bird. All right, I just slaughtered that name. I'm just going to get written up, but I'm sure she will correct it. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us here on we're going to start the show again. Okay, I'm
Look,
going to hit pause. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Let's Talk Real Life with Miss Nada Manning. I'm your co host, Vernon Garrison. And today we have a wonderful show, an absolute wonderful show. We have our special guest back with us, as well as the greatest teacher of all times. Miss Nada Manning will be taking off in just a moment. But before we do that, let me welcome you to Awesome Radio 107.5 WECU 1570. That's right, 107.5 WECU 1570 FM. Outstanding. Well, ladies and gentlemen, you can also find us on social media. You can find us on Awesome Radio Facebook. You can find us on Awesome Radio YouTube, GPAC 23 Local Access Channel, and also the Facebook and the YouTube social media areas there. Well, let's get started. We have a great show lined up for you today, a lot of content. We hope you grab a beverage, a snack, and join the conversation, if you will. Ladies and gentlemen, Miss Nada Manning.
yay!
Good evening, good morning, good afternoon to all of you listeners out there, because it's morning some places and it's afternoon other places and it's night sometime in other places. So I say hello, hello, hello to everyone. I am with you again by the grace of God to bring on another topic for Let's Talk Real Life show. Yes, I am your host, Nada Manning, and we are so joyous to have you with us. We have our continued guest, Ms. Jan Newberg, as mentioned earlier. She is bringing to us this time, it's still about abuse, but it's a different spin on how it feels to live in emotional abuse with toxic people. That's a mouthful. That's a tongue twister. How it feels to live in emotional abuse with toxic people. Now, again, it's about us, emotions and feelings and all the hoop de laws that come along with that. It's just a mouthful of information dealing with toxic people. And it is my hope and my prayer that we will learn a lot from this topic in itself, as we have learned so far the past few weeks. Toxic people. Reverend Jan, please join us in continuing with this topic with focus on what is a toxic person. What is a toxic person?
Well, first, I just want to thank you, our host, Nana Manning, the hostess with the mostest, and our coach, um, Coach Garrison. I am just honored to be here, and you are allowing me to practice just speaking spontaneously, because generally my everything I do is already written. And so thank you for this opportunity. And secondly, I want to thank you for allowing us to talk about a subject that is generally not talked about. Domestic abuse is what we would call a part of that silent culture. We talk around it, we just don't talk about it, because it is, to me, I think it's just so painful. And it's been going on since the beginning of time. But I was just looking back, thinking back when I was just thinking, was there domestic abuse when I was growing up? And of course, it was. It's always been here. We just didn't talk about it. I have aunts and uncles and even my own parents They stayed married for 40, 50, 60 years. But that doesn't mean that they were happily married. They just made a commitment and they stayed together. Wherein now, many times we younger people don't have that stick-to-itness. But things were not always right. But you didn't talk about it, because if you did, you were considered a traitor. You were considered revealing family secrets, and what went on in the house stayed in the house. And so the victim was always having to defend the abuser, as I look back at it and I looked in my own life. But again, thank you so much. I wanted to, I know that we've talked about domestic abuse. We talked about the gaslighting. We talked about the domestic violence, and we talked about the verbal abuse. That was all interesting. Today, though, I wanted to talk about how it feels to live with a toxic person. And the word toxic is just to define this person who is really just poison. They're just maladjusted. And I don't think they're maladjusted. I'm not talking about personalities that we're born with, and we all have our own personalities. But these people just seem to practice being ugly. They just seem to enjoy it. And I looked at the book of Proverbs. Proverbs chapter 4, if you ever read it, you will find that person in the Bible. And it's interesting, and I see my Bible over there, but I can't reach it. But it says that this person is not even happy unless they've made somebody else unhappy. That's a toxic person. They go out of their way they just seem to get joy in causing confusion, causing hardships. And if it's not going their way, then it's not going to go anybody's way. So that's what I define as toxic. Did I answer your question, host?
Yes, and they go out of their way making people unhappy. Now, as you said that, I'm thinking to myself that, is there a such thing as they're not toxic all the time? I mean, when I say that, they might do some things sometime because maybe they're just unhappy sometimes. But you find those that are doing it all the time to everybody, that means they're just not happy, period. No time. Okay, am I right?
Well, for me, in this context, this is a domestic abuse. And this is a person that is abusing another person.
And that other person is their significant other most of the time?
That's right. That's correct.
Not necessarily a spouse, but a close person to them.
Right. Now, for me, it was a spouse, but many times they're not married, but they might as well be married because they've been together so long. I guess the law would even define them as married. But because this person is so close to them, so intimate with them, they appear to have the right to mistreat this other person. And I was just thinking last week, I think we were talking about, was it verbal abuse, whatever we were discussing. Coach, I think you brought it up too. And something that we said, Coach and I were saying, we were defining something, and you, host Manny, you were saying, I can't identify with that. You really, it was out of your sphere of identification, of experience, of reference.
I think it was gaslighting, wasn't it?
Maybe it could have been gaslighting. It could have been.
Yeah, because you two seem to be on it with that, and I'm like the third wheel here.
You were saying yes, and as Coach and I were saying, this has been around. Maybe the term gaslighting is new, but it's the old, same old, same old.
Yeah.
But as far as being a victim, and I do strongly say that you cannot be a victim unless you allow yourself to be a victim. But those that are in domestic abuse, I'm going to say we really didn't feel as if we had any options, and people wonder why we stay in such a condition, dysfunctional position for so long. Why don't you just leave? Why don't you just get up and go? Well, it's not that easy. It really isn't. And in one of my books, in talking about my life, I gave 25 reasons why a person stays in a dysfunction environment. Because that was the first thing they said, well, why don't you just get up and go? Why do you stay? But there are some reasons why people stay. And many of the times it's financial. It's financial. So that's a good reason. But today I just wanted to, because of what you said about the gaslighting, you just didn't get it. You just haven't had that experience with it. And I think that's wonderful.
I was going to say, excuse me. I was going to say, I don't think I missed. I don't think I'm going to fall out because I didn't have that experience.
No, you don't.
It's not one of those things that I'm gloating for. No,
that's not something that you would want. And yet there are many who do have this experience. And I think we can't quantify the number of people that are in this because we don't talk about it. We don't know who they are because the victims, we don't reveal who we are if we can help it. I wore masks long before COVID-19. I wore a mask almost all my life, and being an actress and pretending that things are fine when they were not. And this is just that culture. But I wanted to just talk about, to give some frame of reference so that we can be more sympathetic to someone that's in this predicament, that's in this situation. What we need is discernment. We need wisdom. And now that I'm out of it and I'm looking back into it, I see people and I just want to wrap my arms around them and just kind of protect them and make them feel better because they're miserable. They're scared. They are full of fear. And this toxic person, to me, they seem to be getting joy just at making somebody else miserable. So I go. Yes, please.
What would a person say that's have not, like me, for example?
Yes.
How could I, sometimes when we're trying to help someone, going back to what you were just saying, many times our heart is in the right place to help someone, but as it's not really a cliche, it's really a reality. If you haven't walked in my shoes, how can you help me? If you're not a smoker, how can you convince me to stop smoking? If you have not been abused in the way that I'm being abused, how can you walk me through it? You may have been abused, but maybe you were abused in a different way. So how can someone that have not walked in those shoes actually be helpful in their way of thinking and feeling so that they can realize there is life after this mistreatment? What can someone like myself or, other people that haven't walked in those shoes, what can we say or do? I don't smoke, I don't drink, so I can't help you, but I want to do something.
Coach, can you help me out here?
Yeah, yeah. The first thing you just did was be transparent about it, just like you
Mm,
just did. You were natural.
just said,
Um, you can actually say what you just said, and you know, working with drug dealers, drug addicts, mental health people who are actually patients at that time, going through episodes. You don't know what they're seeing. You don't know the hallucinations, the demons that they are fighting. Um, but if your job, or if you're in that setting, if you're your family member, then you're obligated to some type of connection. So your first line is, I don't know what you're going through. I'm
mhm.
not you. I don't get it. You know, it's hard for me to apologize. I don't quite understand it. But here's what we're going to do, or here's what I can do, or here's what we're not going to do. I'll start out at that where I just left off. You're going to take your medicine. You're going to manage your disorder. Where do you get the instructions from? Your doctor, your clinician. You're struggling with trying to obey the rules of your prescription, the rules of your engagement, fighting this battle, whether it's drugs, whether it's alcohol, whether it's depression. The brain is a systematic organ, the mind, heart, and soul. So there's things we have to do every day. If you got to take a baby aspirin, then you're taking one to perhaps prevent stroke or heart attack. So take it. So that when I take authority like that as a coach, I'm stepping into someone's life. I'm not trying to diagnose you. I'm not trying to um, insert my life into yours. But whatever instructions you have, I'm like, that's what we're gonna do. What you already know to do. Um, and you just gotta lean on that to be right at the moment. The second part is, after you make your disclaimer, you're like, I don't understand what you're doing, but hey, look, things ain't going right, but I'm here. Don't destroy me. I don't know all the tricks in the bag. Somebody on drugs gonna have you driving them around in the car, and they're gonna say, stop right here, stop right here. I gotta run in there and grab something right quick. And they're gonna go in there and they're gonna buy some drugs, and they're gonna get back in the car, and they're gonna be acting some kind of way in about 10, 5, 6 minutes when they come back, and then you're gonna know you got.
Mm,
That's going to happen. Um, just like somebody that has a problem with seizures. One day they're going to have a seizure around you. All you can do is be prepared to comfort them. There's nothing you can do. You can call an ambulance if it's that type of situation, but you're helpless. So those things, admitting your limitations with what's happening, if you even know about it. Um, the other one now, I'm gonna land this one. This one's gonna crash kind of hard.
uh-oh.
If you're dealing with someone who is toxic, they are always gonna lean to psychologically what's negative. They don't want to have a good time.
They really
You
do.
get to the beach, everybody getting out of the car. The sun is shining. It's not raining like you thought. They gonna come up with some stuff. Let's go over here, y'all. Let's go do this. Wait a minute. We come to the beach. You are going to have to control that teacher in you, that principal, that pastor, that authority person inside of you. Excuse me, you're gonna have to hold back, because um, if you don't hold back, you're gonna start something with that person, and they like drama. They like it. I'm not talking about it just happens all the time. It's almost like their life is not complete unless they're putting you down, unless they're telling somebody else to put you down. Toxic people, if they can't judge you and make you look a certain way, they'll judge other people or get other people to see you a certain way. They always want something negative to go. They're always letting their anxiety, and all of us have it, they're letting their anxiety get the best of them. But in a group setting, they're the ones who say, let's stay here. Let's stay in the house. If we go out that door and the house is sinking, you got to make a move. So, but that person really wants to stir up something. And I'll say it in another way. They don't want to stir up something all the time, but they do. That's just the nature of their personality. And if they're not being themselves, something don't feel right with them. And if you start looking good, their low self-esteem are going to be, I like that dress, but I don't know, that it's kind of short. I don't know if you want to wear it. They're going to take your glory if they can. They're going to take some of your recognition and they're going to put you down. So somebody said earlier how to identify this happening if you put no mask. No. You said you put on mask. I just take pot shots, especially if I don't know you. But you gotta be witty to do this. Oh yeah, I see how y'all get along. Oh wow. Oh, does she agree with that? Oh, and you got to be on time when you're trying to expose somebody that's speaking for somebody else all the time because they don't want that other person to indicate what's going on. Just like a mom. Every time you ask the little child something, hey, how are you? Mom said 12. Hey, do you like football? No, he likes soccer. Oh, you like ice cream? Yeah. No, he don't like that. He like this. You can get that maternal dominance, but it's the same thing when you're with a couple. That narcissist person, they're gonna stand out, or egotistic or toxic person gonna stand out in front of them to not let you get to them because there's a lot going on there because they just can't stand to get that other person's glory.
Yeah,
well, putting it that way, that part I can relate to. I used to work with someone like that. I have someone like that in my family. And I want to say there in other churches that I've attended over the years, there was an individual there. So I didn't narrow it down to all of that because it didn't go over my head per se, but it got my attention.
Yes.
It got my attention enough for me to be able to relate to what both of you are saying on this toxicity stuff.
That's right. Yeah. That's right. They're everywhere.
And how I handled it, I just really addressed one or two of them, and then I just let it go. In other words, they weren't successful in stealing my joy, like they wanted to, because they wanted total destroying. They wanted to destroy, and it just didn't happen.
And that's easier said when you're in a situation on a job, in a community, at a church, because you're not there all the time. You don't live there. But when you are married to that individual, it is it really is. And in this particular case, it was just lack of wisdom and lack of discernment because others could see it before I could. And for me to marry a person like this, our personalities are just absolutely the opposite. And yet opposites do attract and later repel, but they do attract. And so for me, I was thinking I could change this person and they ended up changing me. And so you very seldom will change a toxic person or a narcissist. I just think it's utterly impossible.
Do you think that change was good?
Well, if things are good, they'll find a way to tear it down. And if you have a pastor that is like this, it is really a real what's that ride in the park that goes
roller coaster?
It's a roller coaster ride. It's a roller coaster life. And it was I stayed in it for 22 years. And you are, by the time you're out of it, if you ever do get out of it, you're almost mentally ill. You're
Wow.
real. You are really very, but I had an incident, and it was not the toxic person that I was talking about. This person was just, I think, had gone to the war. And back in the 50s, we didn't diagnose those letters of the alphabet, OCD, and all these other things. We didn't even know anything about that. Really,
Right.
we didn't even really address trauma until
Right.
just recently.
Right.
And that's why emotional abuse is so dangerous, because it can upset your whole body, your excuse me, your nervous system, just everything. But I wanted to talk about something that, although I know, Vernon, Coach Vernon, you know about, maybe you don't know the exact verse, but I know my Sunday school teacher, Nada knows, Nada knows, Romans 8:28, and we know that all things work together for good.
Yeah.
To those that love the Lord.
To those that love the Lord. It's amazing how he can take something so terrible and bring good out of it. Well, that's what happened with me. I didn't have any discernment. I was very, very trusting. I told you about my parents. They were very older, and they doted on me. And so I had such a Disney World childhood. It was just great every day. I mean, I didn't really start having problems until I got married. And I wasn't able to cope with a lot of it because I didn't have discernment. I didn't have wisdom. But here comes Romans 8:28. It drove me to the word.
Yeah.
It drove me to the word. Husband number one drove me to the word, and it drove me to the book of Proverbs. And that's a good book to be drawn to. But talking about husband number one, he came back from the Korean War in 1954, 56, and came back with a mother of pearl handle switchblade knife. He loved that knife like most men love their dogs. It was in our bureau drawer in the bedroom. And there were times that he would go and look at it, hold it, and admire it, and then put it back. And he had that knife before we were married, and he had shown it to me, and it just came along with him when we got married. But he had a violent temper. It just triggered. I mean, he could just go off at little of nothing. If things didn't go his way, then he was going to act out. It's like a child that just never really grew up. But he had this knife, and it was in his bureau drawer. And one night I had a dream, and that dream, God told me, get rid of that knife. But now I'm afraid of him to touch anything of his, but the way the Lord made, the way that dream was, it was so it really was. And I don't usually remember my dreams, but this one I will never forget. He didn't tell me how to do it, when to do it, or where to do it, but to get rid of that knife. And so the next morning, we lived in a 2-story apartment in that it had a back landing out of the kitchen door. And as I was standing there at the window drinking my coffee, I heard the trash truck, the sanitation truck, come down. We were living in Gary, Indiana at that time. And that was about 1959, 1960. And we didn't have the kind of sanitation trucks that we have now. It was just an open bed truck with 4 walls around it, and the top was empty. And there were 3 sanitation men, and 2 of them would be on the outside picking up the trash, hoisting it and throwing the trash over into the truck. And the third was the driver. And this truck was coming down the street. You could hear it. It was just rickety and raggedy. You could hear it. And immediately I knew what to do. And so I went back into the bedroom. Generally, he was always home, but this particular day, he was not. And I took the knife out of the drawer and went back to the kitchen, opened the back door, and waited for that garbage truck to come by. And when it got to where we were, the sanitation men were hoisting, and their back was to me. And so as they went to hoist it, I waited, and then I just dropped it down, and it just landed in the truck and sank to the bottom. I cannot tell you the relief that I felt. And but so strange about it, before that dream, I had never thought about that night. It had been there all the time, but it never made any impression on me. That's just how naive I am. But that particular night, that dream, and the next day, well, the truck just kept on going on down, and I just stood on that landing and watched that truck as that sanitation truck, the trash truck, as it just disappeared into. I just felt so relieved. I cannot explain the joy and the peace and the lightness that I felt.
Obviously, you felt some fear of him doing something to you with that knife.
You know, I don't even think I even sensed it, but I did have a fear of knives.
Yeah.
If you had a gun or a knife, and you were, say, choose one that you would like to be destroyed by, why you would do that, I don't know. But I would have chosen the gun. To me, a gun, you can injure a person or take a person out from a distance.
Yeah.
With a knife, you have to get pretty close unless you're going to throw it like a dart. But most of the people who use knives, they don't throw it, they stab. And that to me was just, and I suppose you probably are right. In the subliminal part of my mind, that fear was always there because that knife was always there. But anyway, 3 weeks later, he got mad.
Oh boy.
To this day, I don't know what I did to upset him. And he had never done this before, but he stopped. He looked at me, he turned, and he went to the bedroom to get that knife. He pulled out the bureau drawer, reached in. It was always there, but this time it wasn't. He reached again. He pulled the drawer out, threw it on the floor, looked all over trying to find that knife. Of course, he didn't find it and then he looked at me. He looked at me as if to say, now I know that dummy didn't have sense enough or the nerve enough to touch something that belonged to me. And had he asked me, I would have told him, but he never did. He never asked me what happened to that knife. And as fast as he went into a rage, he went out of the rage, got up, put the drawer back in, went to the living room and started watching TV. And to this day, that was over 50 years ago, he never asked me what happened to that knife. But I just thanked God for me being right here because I know that would have been my end.
Yeah.
I don't know what to say about that. I'd like to hear what you all think about that, because to this day, I never got closure on that particular incident. And never before, we did fight, but it was never with a weapon, but that weapon was in our home. It was a beautiful, just a mother of pearl knife, switchblade knife that came from Korea. And that's the end of the story.
Well, that is that's your ego wanting to. You were conditioned. You
was conditioned.
Yeah, you don't need to know the end of the story because that was the end of the story. He didn't ask you. So that was the one time that he let you be right because he felt like he was giving more attention to that blade and you saw that affection and he knew it was inordinate. It's called an inordinate affection. When you have affection towards shoes, some people have sex with shoes. Because some people have intimate relationships with objects, and he knew he had one. And if so, if I'm correct, then you were right. So now, why would you want to go and work with Sleeping Giant? That's your ego. Now,
is that my ego? Well, I don't want an ego on that. No,
you want to give that ego a spoonful of gratification to know that you were right, and that spoonful of gratification could cost you a whole argument. And that's not, you don't want to pay that much for a spoonful of gratification. All that he can bring it. You did what to my knife? Where you put it at? I know you're the only one who had access to it unless somebody broke in the house. So he yielded to your spirit.
But that was just so out of his, out of his nature.
Yeah, but you can't control the control. It's like you're doing a lab experiment. Yes, when you're doing a lab experiment, you want to see why it worked and why it didn't work. And you got this and that Petri dish, and you got that under that condition. And so you want to know both the full story, why the organism didn't grow in this environment, why it grew in that dish, and why. No, let that go.
Oh, well, that's interesting because I never would have looked at it like that. I thank you for that.
Yeah,
thank you. I really do.
I wanted to throw in something there right along that. When people treat you like they don't care, believe them. There's another category of toxicity that comes by itself rather than one person being more toxic than the other. Okay. It's when you both realize that that's all you do is argue. Every controversial thing that you don't agree on or that you don't see it the other person's way, you go too far. Both of the parties do that, and it's emotional, it's pride. But once you both settle down and realize it, usually one person is brave enough to say, you know what? We just too doggone toxic when we do this. We both of us. And I remember dating somebody, and I remember the day I said it. I was a little scared to say it, but because they always want you to take blame for something. But I was a little scared to say, but when I denied myself, when I died to who I was at that moment, and I put my anger aside and my frustration, I said, you know what? We just too toxic. We just do this too much. And I ain't got no ring on your finger and you ain't got no ring on mine. Okay? So, either we're going to be good friends and associates for the things that we do well together, or we just, but I'm not going to change you. I'm not going to try to change you. And that's the closure of what I'm saying here. When you allow someone to walk in your mind with dirty shoes, as Mahatma Gandhi used to say, I don't allow nobody to walk through my mind with dirty shoes. When you do that, you have to be a strong person to say, you know what? When this is over, I'm about to leave. I'm about to bounce. I can't change that person in one episode or one date or one session, or we playing basketball together. I can't change them. They argue the whole game.
The whole game.
Yeah, you have to basically walk away, and you have to manage the time that person's involved in your life, because if you say something, your voice is like a squeaking chalkboard, squeaking on a chalkboard to them. They don't really want to hear it, and especially when you get in that, I got something to tell you, or maybe you should consider this. They're not trying to hear none of that. But okay, back to my point, both parties need to agree that you guys, when you debate, when you disagree, and I'm not talking about politics, okay? Everybody gonna get upset when you do that. Everybody gonna feel some kind of way when you're talking about well, you don't touch me like you used to, or you don't say you love me anymore, or you promoted that person over me. Everybody's gonna have some top 10 moments there. No, I'm talking about systemic, consistent. They don't want to see you win, and you don't want to see them win.
Oh, that's
That
bad.
means, yeah, both of y'all, it's just like you wanted to go find out what he thought about that knife. Leave that investigation alone. But you had, so that's what happens in an argument. You got to get that last word. Man, I remember we started arguing and this really is the last thing I'm gonna say. When we started arguing in my marriage, and we would be going till 3 o'clock in the morning. Both of us got to go to work the next day. Here it is, 2:30, 2:45. I'm trying to lay down and go to sleep. And here she go. And one more thing. What in the world? One more what? You just keep perpetually going and going and going. You can't shut up, even though you try. Okay? Your shut up won't even shut up. Because you got to get your. That's when both of y'all need to say we're toxic.
That's toxic.
That's my point right there.
Yes. That was a good point. That was, I think, very, very clear, very descriptive, and we can get it. So,
well, folks, we are moving right along in the show with this toxicity, this emotional abuse. We are on Let's Talk Real Life show. I am your host, Nada Manning, and it's my pleasure to have Coach Garrison and our guest, Reverend Dr. Jan Newberg, with us as we talk about these emotions and this abusiveness that people seem to not seem, but they do. They have this habit of expressing themselves in very hurtful ways. Some of it is intentional, and like I said earlier, I mean, I like to think some of it just might be, and maybe the both of you can correct me on this. Maybe there are times when the person really don't mean to be. It's not all the time, but every now and then something slips, and it does not come out the right way. It's very hurtful, and it comes out in an abusive manner. And that's why I said earlier, there are times when a person can sometimes be like that, but not all the time. Is there such a thing as being sometimes abusive?
And
because our feelings get in it.
Not sometimes abusive, okay? Abusive, that's a pattern, that's a syndrome, okay? But here's what you're saying right now. Here's a quote by Lao Tzu, whatever Asian folk be calling their names. Laotzu. Okay, I want to respect the person's name. Respond intelligently, even to unintelligent treatment, because you never know when you have legitimately hurt somebody, and you may not want to hear their voice either. So if I jump too fast at you, thinking you're having one of those moments, I could have already done something to you to warrant that discussion. Like I was telling you about the last show, just because when somebody raised their voice, that might mean the best discipline they could give you. Other than that, they felt like cussing you out. They feel like calling you a name. They felt like saying, I ain't never going to pick you up no more. I want a divorce. So that's the least thing they could do. So you're right, Miss Nada. The sometimes thing is when I allow you to be who you are and show me your frustration without me victimizing you for being upset with me every time you say you're angry, or, if I'm, out of pocket, that's a narcissist move right there. That's back to the other conversation, that even when you say something right, or you correct me, or you object to what I'm saying because it don't make sense, you could be actually right. And I have no right, if you love me as a person, then you can be tough on me, and I should recognize, like a coach. Get back out there on that field. I need you to do what we did in practice. Period. The kid is gonna hear me. He's gonna go back out there and he's gonna try to do what we did in practice. His feelings are not gonna be hurt.
Mm-hmm.
But if we don't have that that relationship, then his mama heard what I said to him, his daddy heard what I said to him, then nobody get it. So after practice, why are you talking to my son like that? But no, I shouldn't persecute you for just a objection or an admonishment.
But, there are people, I agree with you, Coach, but working with someone, being around someone occasionally or even frequently, if you work with them maybe 5 days a week, but it's still not like living with the person. And because you know what things that other person doesn't like or doesn't want, and yet you persist in doing it. That's what I label toxic. Mm-hmm. Someone who it's as if it were intentional. It's not accidental. It's on purpose, and to upset someone. So,
and they do it all the time.
Out of 365 days, they do it at least 364.
Look at that. That was an intelligent insult right there. I thought she was gonna at least give him a break, man. She says out of 365 days, they do it at least 364.
So going back to the topic question, how does it feel? Everybody gets a different feeling from it, obviously.
Yes. It's a feeling of being imprisoned in your own home. It's a feeling of not being able to be your authentic self because you might get criticized and that's the last thing you want to do is to be criticized and put down. And so these are some of the things that people go through that are in domestic abuse, and they may never have touched you physically. They may not even really raise their voice at you, but that passive aggression, there are so many things that can go on in a relationship, in a marriage that, anyway, I think the fact that I'm out of it and I'm writing about it to help others, I'm seeing things that I didn't even see when I was in the marriage and in the relationship. So
now this also can be outside the home. You're still in a relationship, but say you're outside the home, you're visiting someone, you're at a party, you're at a cookout, you're among other people. I don't want to say, but you could be even at church, and words are said or body language is expressed to that partner, which lets you know that behavior is coming out, that abuse is coming out. No one else would probably notice it. Maybe sometime they will, and maybe sometime they won't. But does it not happen even when you're outside of the house?
Yes, it does. It does. And with you two knowing each other so well, you can give signals.
Yeah.
And others may not even be conscious or aware of what's going on. But because I've lived in it so long, it's given me like a sixth sense. I can almost see things that may go over the heads of others because I've dwelt in. And I know Coach can see things. He sees things before even the couple probably might see it.
So you're saying you feel some kind of way?
I do. Yes.
How about you, Coach? How do you feel?
Here's and I'm gonna answer your question directly. Here is Mark Twain, quote from Mark Twain: "Never argue with stupid people because they will drag you down to their level, then beat you with experience. Each time you feel like going for it, and you're like, I can make a difference. I'm gonna get my point across. If you can find an intelligent way to respond, because you know what's going to happen, it's a trend. You might be wrong that time, but I doubt it. It's a trend. Go ahead. If you're an alpha male, just close your mouth and look like a beta male at that time, and you can somebody's gonna be looking at you like, he just let her walk all over him. You're gonna get that. You're gonna get that little bit of you're gonna get that little bit of embarrassment. But you know the end game, you're going to lose because you're gonna be arguing all night. It's gonna ruin the whole event. In fact, if you don't talk, if you don't respond, if you ignore them, you still gonna have to pay. You still have to pay for just that. Right. Mm-hmm. But if you know that the people listening right now, is so disheartening, that empty feeling that you have afterwards, that they drain every piece of life out of you. Every piece of life out of you. It's incredible how you feel like, man, if I had just not said anything, or you have some regrets, and I'm not a regretful person. I don't live off of regrets. I don't be like, well, I don't think I should have done that. Well, actually,
you don't.
And then because when you do, you did it. Now you're going to go back and say, well, we shouldn't have done that. No, ain't no we should have done that. You should have done that and not done that, but you didn't do that. You done that. Oh, I can't say that no more. You shouldn't have done that, what you did, and then come back and say you shouldn't have done it. No, you done did it. So you can't undo it. So you can't regret it. You should have. You can think about what I'm saying right now. When you see that look on that other person's face, fight for that moment to shut your mouth, to say, it's all right, honey, okay, or yes, sir, I got you. We'll talk later. If you can put a comma, or if you can do some type of transition, some kind of body language that they don't see. With me, I got one of those faces, so I can't hide at all sometimes. But when I can, I will.
That's discernment. Mm-hmm.
Yes, discernment. That's it. Once you get older and wiser to the game,
yes,
you can change a toxic relationship by being an example, but you can't change it by falling in the trap every time. And you doggone sure can't change them by telling them what's wrong with them every day, because you don't want them to do that to you.
That's true.
They already do that to you. I'm full of these oxymorons today. You don't want them to do that because they already do that to you. But yes, you can change them. You're not changing them. You're just making them change their ways to deal with you.
Reverend Jan, do you have anything else to say?
No, I'm so interested in what Coach is. You know, he's a coach, but I think he's a counselor too.
Oh Lord, I don't know about that.
Well,
I need to raise my rates up.
Did you have any last comments, because we are coming to the end of the hour?
No, I'm just so thankful that there's so many things that happen, but this one in particular about this knife, and Coach has just let me know that this was one of those Romans 8:28. Just it worked together for good. Leave it and just move on. And so,
Amen. Well, folks, we are at the end of the show, and it's just been so interesting. This hour well, it's not an hour, but this time that seemed to go by so fast. Father God, thank you again for all that you've done with us today, and our thoughts and ideas and our open hearts and listening ears. Thank you, Lord, for being who you are. Until next time, we give you praise and honor. In Jesus' name, amen.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, this has been an awesome radio broadcast, 107.5 WECU 1570 FM. You guys have a great day, and God bless you.
Thank you. Thank you.